administration, you might want to roll over, go back to bed, because a new ABC News poll shows only 1/3 of U.S. adults approve of the job President Biden is doing. That is a record low, not just for him, but also for any president over the last 15 years. And yet some Democrats are still brushing it off.
Our poll this morning has Biden's approval rating at 33%. That's historically low for him, low for an incumbent president. It's at 15 years since we see numbers that low.
I think your poll is a bit of an outlier. This battle hasn't even been joined yet. You've got a bunch of Republicans, MAGA Republicans, espousing things that are not good for the American public. Joe Biden has proven that he's the one standing up for working families. He's the one standing up for the rights that people view as fundamental.
That's one way of looking at it. Talk radio host and America First Policy Institute Ambassador Stacy Washington joins us now. Stacy, that is the line that Biden defenders like Pritzker use. This poll is an outlier, but how can all these polls with low approval ratings, including the lowest one yet, all be outliers?
They can't. So I'd love to see that commentator who spoke last. I'd like to see him show up with me at the local Schnucks. That's the family-owned grocery store in the St. Louis metro area. We could just stroll in there together, and I'll get the cart, and he can go around and put the mic, man on the street style, in the faces of the people who are paying $1.89 for a can of mushrooms that during the Trump years cost 89 cents a can. And he can talk to the people about the chicken thighs and the milk and the creamer, the basics. Then we can move over to the porterhouse steaks and things like that, because that's what Americans are used to eating. $19 for a steak at Walmart last night right here in the St. Louis metro area. I'm wondering where he's living. What about the gas? People aren't lying on the Trump side about wanting the $2 a gallon gas that they had during the Trump years. And what about energy? We're not running our gas fireplaces anymore because the cost of energy in our home has become so exorbitant. So I'm not here for what he says the polls are. I'm here for what my eyes and my wallet show me on a monthly basis about what it's like to live under the Biden administration. An additional $11,500 a year for my family to live the same lifestyle we had back during the Trump years. Now, bless God, it's not harming us, but it does cause us to take a pause when it's an extra trip, when it's something extra that we're paying for, to reevaluate whether or not that's necessary. And in the budget, it's a different scenario now than it was when Trump was in office. And it just so happens that Trump's running again. So Biden should be looking at ways that he can shore up the economy, shut down the southern border, because that wage competition hurts Americans, instead of all of this lying.
Yeah, and to your point, his approval on the economy is at 31%, so even lower than his overall approval rating. Senator Bernie Sanders was on CNN yesterday, and he said that something has to change within the Biden administration. He says it will be very hard for most Americans, especially young people, to be excited about what's going on in a world amid President Biden's bid for re-election. But of course, it's Bernie Sanders talking, so he is calling for the president to take on even more progressive policies and change his stance on the Israel-Hamas war. So does the president listen?
That's like your doctor saying, how's that treatment working out for you? And you say, it's not working. And he's like, well, let's do it a little bit more. Instead of taking 2 pills a day, let's take 10. You're in pain, you're suffering, nothing has improved. And he's like, let's double down on this thing. I don't think that's what Americans want. Now, Bernie Sanders doesn't have much room for dissent in his party. Look what they did to Mayor Eric Adams up in New York when he started complaining about their $12 billion budget deficit due to migrant influx. They launched an investigation into him. That was their very clear message to him, to shut up and toe the line. So what's going to have to happen here is Americans are going to have to vote their wallets. They're going to have to vote their energy policy. They're going to have to vote about whether or not they have illegal aliens shutting down their kids' schools, whether they want remote learning, whether they think Democrats will be kind to them during the next pandemic. They weren't during the last. These are the kind of decisions people are going to have to make, regardless of what the talking heads are saying. And I'm saying this as someone who joins you on Fox and Friends. What's real for you in your everyday life, and how do you compare that to 3 years ago?
Stacy Washington, thank you so much for getting up with us. We appreciate it. Have a great Iowa election day.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.